surely they're not going to leave me there, right? Who leaves a child in a freezer?
We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it.
Then I heard the thud of the garage door, and I knew I was going to die. And I have my doctorate in divinity, and I work with children who have near-death experiences, and I've not heard one yet tell me. But you're in the grocery store, you're feeling good, you're shopping, you're looking at a can of beans, and boom, you start crying. There it is. I always tell people grief is in the corner doing push-ups.
With people like here on earth, they call like certain goddesses and gods by the certain names, right? But I always had this theory, I guess, that it's like if you can tap into the frequency, then you'll get a little bit deeper.
That's 100% accurate. Everything is frequency. And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most feels right. Nothing's working out. Please help me. And they were crying, and I felt this feeling of not sadness, but...
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Transformation to Expansion. I'm your host, Joelle Bradley, and today we have Susan Grau on the show, and I'm so grateful for her to be here. She's going to be talking about the incredible work that she does as a healer, a renowned body, mind, and spiritual intuitive, inspirational speaker, and Hay House best-selling author. Susan's journey began following a profound near-death experience at just 4.5 years old. It's just like, and then the fact that you can remember it, it's a whole, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. This pivotal moment in her life awakened her unique healing abilities, allowing her to connect with spirits from the other side. Please welcome Susan onto the show. Hey, Susan, how are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you calling me on their show and having me be here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation and coming onto the show. Like we said earlier before the show, like I love your book. I love the way it's organized. I love like so many aspects of it. If you guys haven't seen her book yet or heard of it, her book is Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, Love,
Wisdom from the Spirit World.
Thank
On
you.
living, dying, and the in-between. I know it's a tongue twister, so don't worry about it. Everybody does it. Everybody I do podcasts with, if they go to that byline, they're like, wait, okay, what is it? Yeah. But it's all about living and leaving here, like what is dying? Because it really doesn't exist. And then, what goes on in between that part of our journey. It's all about that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, I just remember Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. And then it's like...
Yeah, it's perfect.
But yeah, I love how it's organized. I mean, you're one of the few people who write books who actually have actionable steps in it, and I love that. It's like it's genius too.
Thank you.
And you actually start the book by talking about that near-death experience that you had at 4.5 years old, which is crazy. I haven't like actually read a book where it starts like at like the moment. Well, I mean, it's the moment it happened, right? So It makes sense. But I remember when I was started to read your book, like it was like, oh, she's gonna start with this. Let's go there. Like, let's go into that. Can you just share with the audience a little bit about what that experience was and how that is really the starting point and the inspiration for, the work that you do now?
Definitely the inspiration. I don't know what I would have been without it. People ask me that question all the time. How do you think it changed you? And I go, I was almost 5. I don't know what I would have been, but I know it had a profound change on me. What happened is I think, just to be honest, I had this gift prior to that. I remember seeing animals float when they would cross on our property, and I just didn't think anything. I had no thought that was normal to me. Like if you go in the rain and get wet, right? I wouldn't ask someone, are you wet too? We'd both be wet. That's what I thought about seeing things floating. But I was playing fort with some boys. I was tipping on 5. I was a couple months away from 5. And they asked me if I wanted to keep playing, if I would get up and get them popsicles in the freezer in the garage. We weren't allowed to go in the garage. And it was closed. And the 2 boys were able to open the garage door, and they did. And I decided to get up in that freezer to get popsicles. And unbeknownst to a 4.5-year-old, I didn't know it wasn't plugged in. I just thought, I'm going to get up and I'm calling out flavors. You want green, you want red, you want blue, and I'm all in it because I really want to please these guys a lot. And I want to play for it. And I was always a little different. So someone playing with me was really special. Mm-hmm. So I was excited. And I realized that there were no popsicles. And when I was getting prepared to turn around and tell them, I'm not going to be able to play for it, and I was pretty sad. And they closed the freezer door. And I think I thought, surely they're not going to leave me there, right? Who leaves a child in a freezer, and so I wasn't, really panicked or anything. But then I heard the thud of the garage door, and I knew I was going to die. Actually, I knew, and I don't know how to explain that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you think the word die or death, but you're going to end. This is serious. This is beyond serious. You are it. What I think I felt was I'm not going to see my mommy again. That was what I think came in through me, and that was to me leaving forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and I heard stop screaming, and I looked over, and there were three on the front of my book. I have them, three beautiful bright lights, and I kept screaming, because I was a little
Right.
girl and I wasn't going to listen to these lights. Who are they? And like, what do you want to do? What are you doing here?
Right.
And then I heard one that stepped in and said, Susie, stop screaming, like
Mm-hmm.
authoritative voice. And we're going to get your mommy. That's all I needed to hear. But I felt like they were kind of saying, but first.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hear that, but that's what I felt like. And I was just on the bottom of this stairway. I mean, it was just like zap. I was there. I did not feel myself being pulled from my body. I did not look back and see my body. Now, I have my doctorate in divinity, and I work with children who have near death experiences, and I've not heard one yet tell me they saw their bodies. So I think for a child, it's frightening. Like they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they're looking at.
Right.
So I think that's guarded for them. That's what I have to think is real. Now it may be different. Maybe I just haven't worked with them, but for me, I haven't seen it. And I remember being at the bottom of the stairs, and it was kind of a cracked, broken stair, but beautiful. It
Mm-hmm.
seemed like cement to me of some sort. And I looked up and I saw this beautiful Greco-Roman room. Now, I want to speak in human or in adult terms because there's no way I could understand that at the time. And so I want to be really clear with your listeners
Mm-hmm.
because they say things like, well, how could she call it that? And when she was little, how did she know about that? I didn't. I didn't. But looking back, I know what it looked like. And also people ask me, how did she remember all of this? She was so little. And I asked them, have you seen The Wizard of Oz? And they go, yeah. And I go, do you remember the ruby slippers? Yeah. Do you remember the little guys dancing on, the lollipop kids? Yes. Do you remember the lion? Yes. It had an impact on you. Do you remember Oz? Yes. That impact creates a memory base. And this had a very profound impact on me. So I remembered a lot. Um, so I remember that, looking at this beautiful room, and on the ceiling, it was a big circle. And I just knew that inside this room was another circle, and it was important. And I needed to
Hmm.
get to it. And I knew that it matched the top. I just
Mm-hmm.
knew the openings were like eternal, like they flowed together basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like a light would, like a beam of light would flowing together. And I was there. I was on the edge of this beautiful.
So, have you ever felt like you're meant for more? You're here for a reason. Something inside of you knows that there's more. There's more purpose, there's more connection, there's more fulfillment, there's more love to be enjoyed in this life. What if all of that was here right now? Your life easier to navigate, your dreams easier to manifest. You can live in a life of ease, even in these uncertain times with Pluto being in Aquarius. Your community of expansion is right here at your fingertips. From the moment you enter, you feel the sense of release and comfort. No more wondering if all those downloads you got as a kid were just random thoughts. No more wondering that time you had telepathy, thinking that it was just a fluke. Be with the people you know are here for you. Join our ever-expanding community on Patreon for free. And for those of you who ask, yes, the Wellness Library is included. I love y'all so much. Let's get back to the show. Peace.
Circle, and I looked to my left, and I saw the angels, what I call angels, standing there, and they were just welcoming me basically. And I looked down into this beautiful abyss. It was infinite, hence the word infinite in my book. I use it a lot. It was just infinite energy. And looking back, it felt like DNA twisting and turning, like kind of going like this, but it was words and it was one consciousness. And I didn't understand that, but I knew that they were blending together. That's how I looked at it. And I thought it was prayers. And
Mm-hmm.
I heard someone say, my mom's got cancer. God, please don't let her die. I heard somebody say, I'm going to turn 16 and my mom and dad will get me a car. And I want a car really bad. God, please make them get me a car. And it was all these
Mm-hmm.
different, desires, I guess.
The
And,
car
yeah, I
for a
know. I know.
16-year-old.
Like, who's going to hear that? Why did I hear that? But it was really, powerful though. Like I could feel the energy of need or
Mm-hmm.
desire. Desire is a better word. And I asked them, where am I? Now I'm going to use the word rooms because I don't remember the word they used. They could have said in a dimensional place. I don't remember, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they were meaning rooms. So throughout this, I'm going to use that word. And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I mean, I think about that now and it's still, what? Um, and I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. I didn't like hearing that. My mom used to say, just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you. And so I was like, what's going on here? And where am I? I was really confused for a while. And then I wasn't. It was as though that confusion just left me and I didn't need it anymore. But I was still close to that ethereal part of me.
Yeah.
And I was close to the human part of me still because I took me with me. And I looked ahead and I saw this beautiful road. I called it the Yellow Brick Road because I had seen The Wizard of Oz. That's why I used that analogy. And at the front of the road were these beautiful pyramids, and they went way high in the sky. And I was watching humans, not spirits. They might have been spiritual humans, but to me, they were humans. And they were coming in and they were pulling from the bottom of these pyramids and they were paving their path. And it was bumpy and crooked and out of alignment. It wasn't even a path. It looked like a bunch of like bricks thrown. That's what it looked like to me. And I don't know how I knew, but I knew this then, that was their life journey. And what happens when you pull from the bottom of a pyramid? It imbalances. So they were unbalancing their life journey, trying to do their experience, right? And I watched them drop to their knees and for the love of God, nothing's going right, nothing feels right, nothing's working out. Please help me. And they were crying, and I felt this feeling of not sadness, but connection. Like, why don't things work out? What's that
Mm-hmm.
about? That's what I felt. Like, why do bad things happen to people? And why are there bad people? All these thoughts started going through my head and they kind of deflected off of that. And when the what I call humans were asking, for help, I watched them, they disappeared. And these beautiful angels came in and started pulling from the pavers, and they went to the bottom of the pyramid and put them back. And then they went to the top of the pyramid and pulled off a paver and started paving the path, and it was perfect. It's one you'd want to walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the paver recreate itself. And so I knew that it was infinite, our journey, that we didn't have to worry about running out of pavers. It went on even after this world. It went
Mm-hmm.
on forever. We never had to be without our pavers, our life journey, our soul journey. It's all combined.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that fully, but it makes sense to me now as I remember what I felt. And um, remember, everything's in telepathy and feeling. I don't
Yeah.
hear them with my ears, even though they said and I heard. And then I remember they said some other things to me in this room that were fairly powerful. And then I asked them when they were putting the pavers in, what are you doing? Like any 5-year-old would or 4.5-year-old would. And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I, of course, how do you know if you're walking it right? Because now I'm scared. Like, what if I don't walk it right? What's going to happen? Am I going to get in trouble? Because that's what happened on this planet. And they said, we bless and block everything. Make no mistake, you can get through a block, Susie. If there's a wall, you can get through it, battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And if there's another wall, shift again. And if there's another wall, shift again. And before you know it, you are on your path where we are. And the words I never forgot that I've been saying my whole life: what you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you. We will be there paving your path, and all you'll have to do is walk it. Kind of understood, kind of didn't. I know I didn't listen because I tried to control everything my whole life. I'm like, I'm going to control this. This isn't going to happen. And it never worked to my greatest good, ever. It took me so many years to let go and allow. Just to let go and allow. And still to this day, I catch myself trying to control something. And then I go, no, that won't work. And I know what we try to run from ends up dictating our journey because it keeps coming in front of us over. You ever notice that? The things you don't deal with keep coming in front of you over and over and over again. It's chasing you because you haven't done the soul work. So now I understand that. At the time, it was really cool words, though, and I kept it. And then I remembered this beautiful, I don't share this all the time, this beautiful crystal. I don't know if it was a crystal, but it felt like glass to me, smoky glass. And I remember it was in a pyramid shape, like most everything there. And I remember thinking, I could see movement in it. And it felt like humans or spirit ghosts, like you, Casper the Friendly Ghost kind of feeling. And I wanted to put my hand in it, and I couldn't. And I knew at that moment that if I could have put my hand in it, I wasn't going to return. So I feel like that was the boundary. That was the barrier. And then the next thing I knew, I was in this room. I called it the room of knowledge because that's what they told me it was. They called it a dimension of knowledge, but a room of knowledge is what my childlike voice heard.
Makes sense. Okay.
And there were, it wasn't virtual, but there were books, I guess, or writing. It wasn't even books, like writing in front of people. And I don't know how to describe it. There are no human words. And I saw this little girl with her family, and she was saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I can do it. I can handle it. And my soul's going to expand. And it's going to grow, and I'm going to do so good. And they were discouraging. Oh no, that's way too much. That's way too much to go through in one life journey. Oh no, I can do it. I can do it. And then I saw like the loving family members going, well, I'll be there and I'll help you with that. We'll help her, and there's all this information coming back and forth. And I didn't understand. And I said, where am I? And then they said, you're in the room of knowledge. And I said, what are they doing? And they said they're choosing their next incarnation. And boom, they were gone. Well, I didn't know what incarnation meant. I had no idea what she meant. And he, she, it. And so I just accepted it as being, the place where we're meant to be. And to learn and to come back. I know I chose the PhD in hardships. But one of the things I heard them say before these people disappeared is, well, you do have free will. And they were gone. It was like they made the decision. Even though it was discouraged, they still wanted to grow and expand exponentially, right? They wanted to be big. Somebody asked me in a podcast, do you think that was you? I said, well, I've definitely learned the PhD in hardship, as my book shares. So, maybe so. I don't know. But I kind of got an aha moment, like maybe that was kind of bizarre for someone to say to me. And, just to speed this up a little, I ended up in this, this room or this place. It was so beautiful. And there were our animals, our soul animals everywhere. And I love animals. And in fact, if you look over here. I'm extremely attached to wolves. They're my
Oh
babies.
yeah.
Yeah. See, they're my babies. And um, I I remember just feeling so happy that I was with
Hmm.
animals, and so
Yeah.
peaceful and so happy. And then I was in this beautiful open field, and there were creatures everywhere, every kind. There were wolves, there were, squirrels, there were everywhere, and they all loved each other. They all seemed to get along. There was no strife and no like, oh, watch out, that's a coyote. None of that was going on, you know.
Hmm.
And then I remember, I'm going to get emotional now.
Oh girl, we already there. You caught me tearing up earlier.
Okay, so I remember looking to my left, and this being that was everybody and everything and everyone and every feeling and every emotion and everything. I was on this mountain of some sort, and I wanted to get up that mountain so badly, and I couldn't. That's all I wanted, and I couldn't. And I was sitting in this field with dandelions and like you've never seen, colors you've never seen, flowers you've never seen. Everything pulsates, even the grass. Everything is
Yeah.
alive, everything.
Hmm.
And I remember this, like I couldn't go to it, but it was going to come to me. That was the feeling I had in this beautiful beam of light. But it wasn't light, it was love. It was tangible, like a light, like you can see it, but it was love. And it came like right into my being.
Hmm.
And I was everything, and I was nothing, and I was perfect in every way. I've never felt that ever again in my life. I'm always looking for it. The closest I can get to it is when there are babies put in your arms and you feel that intensive love. It's the closest I can get to it. Like they're here, they're finally here.
Yeah.
And some other things were said to me, and then I think to my right. I don't know what to call it. I think I was looking to my right, but this beautiful angelic being was floating towards me. And all I could think at that point was, I want to float. I hope I get to float. So I knew I was going back into some of my human thought patterns, because I don't think a spirit worries about whether they're floating, but I wanted to float so bad.
Hmm.
And they said to me, she said to me, it's time to leave. And I'm sure I was floating at that point because
Hmm.
she was floating. And so I must have been floating next to her, but I couldn't tell that I was. And it was so important to me. I couldn't see me, you know. Um, and then I was by, and she came out of this beautiful effervescent cottage, solid but not. It's the only way I know how to say it. And then I was on this embankment with water, and I was walking down this path, and she was telling me that I was gonna go through the water and be cleansed. And I thought they meant I was going to be cleaned up from my mommy because I got dirty I mean, I'm getting my human thinking back. And then she said, this is not going to be an easy journey.
Hmm.
And I didn't like that. But I also didn't understand. Like, what does that mean? And she didn't explain it, but she said, everything you go through, Susie, will help you heal others, and you will be a healer, and you'll be doing things that are wonderful. And always remember that. And then the next thing I knew, I was being dropped into this, not dropped, I stepped into it really, water, this beautiful, crystal, perfect, clear water. And in this whole time, my mom was hearing your baby's in the freezer and she ignored it. And the final time she heard it in her head, she said it was like a scream. So she only heard it in her head, and then she felt like it just screamed outside of her, came in.
Mm.
Now I had seen my mom from there. And I was saying, I'm in the freezer, mommy. And I feel like she heard me, but she didn't respond, but except for that she was turning her head. So I felt like, oh, she heard me. I think that was my first lesson in communication with spirit,
Mm.
looking back.
Mhm.
Um, and then she ran out, oh my God, my baby's in the freezer is what happened inside of her. And she ran out to the garage. The garage door was closed. So she thought, there's no way Susie couldn't open this. We didn't know garage
Mhm.
doors. We didn't have cell phones and garage doors and all that stuff. And no, there's no way Susie could open this. And then she thought better of it. And she opened up the garage door and she ran over to the freezer. She opened up the freezer door and I was facing inward and, down, I wasn't, my back wasn't, my back was showing, not my face. And she spun me around and she said I was ashen with blue tipped fingers and swelling, like bloat, like swelling.
Yeah.
And she panicked, went to go run, get a phone. She was screaming, screaming for my sister, screaming for anybody. And I fell, cracked my jaw. I still have that little scar. And took a breath. Now, my mom thought I had brain damage. So for a couple of days, and my father worked at hospitals, and so my mom told my dad that night, very afraid to tell him that, and that she wouldn't take me to the hospital because she was afraid to tell him because my father was an alcoholic and he would
Right.
get angry. And she
Right.
was supposed to turn it towards the wall and bolt it, like everyone was told to do. And just right around the time of my experience, actually, it was happening because so many kids were being locked in them
Mm.
and dying.
Yeah.
And so it took about 2 days for me to feel like I was somewhat normal. And when I opened my eyes, I could see spirits. And they were everywhere, corner of the room, down the hallway, under my bed, in my bed. They were everywhere, looking in the window. And I thought they were the boogeyman. So I'd cover my head and say, go away, go away, go away. But they didn't. And I'd cry for my mom. And then, oddly enough, I would play with them during the day. I didn't have many friends. And so I played with them during the day. And I had a few, but not many. And I would play house. I'd play, Beatles, and I had babies, and all these other things. And it was really fun. And then I'd recognize that they weren't really there. And I'd start to panic, like fear, because they were so real to me. And then I realized they're not human.
Mm.
And I would throw something out to try to scare them. Like, I know my daddy's in the shower and he's an expert in judo, karate, and aikido. I'd do something like that. And I can remember that feeling as a child, aikido, and I was going to really scare them as if they didn't know the truth. And they'd back away and then they'd come back in and they'd play with me again. And my family called it the creepy room because they always felt spirits in there. So that's my story of what happened to me on the other side.
Girl, there's so much that came up.
I know it's hard to unpack, isn't it?
I was like, like, there's so much stuff that, yeah, I resonated with. I've heard other people say similar things about, and I'm pretty sure, you're probably in the room of Akashic Records. Maybe, is this, okay, I was like, you can tell me no, it's okay. I haven't been there myself, so.
No, no, I just don't relate to that name because I feel like
Mm.
somehow humans put that name on it. But being little, maybe I wouldn't have understood that. I understood what knowledge was. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's it. But I always think, did
Mm-hmm.
humans put that name on it? Because it's the room of knowledge to me. I'll never be able to call it that.
I love that. I love that. I mean, we're not gonna get into the semantics of it. We ain't gonna get into that. But yeah, we do. Humans, we do. We name things, and then I think names can actually mess up because I think this is my belief, but everything outside of this construct is vibrational. Like, and with people like here on Earth, they call like certain they call like goddesses and gods by the certain names, right? But I always had this theory, I guess, that it's like if you could tap into the frequency, then you'll get a little bit deeper. And I think that's the true quote unquote name. It's not the name that we give them, but it's actually the frequency. But
Exactly.
yeah,
That's
so
100% accurate.
oh really?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because
Yeah,
I was like,
it
this was
is.
like my
It
little
is.
like.
Everything is frequency and vibration. Everything, and especially our being. In fact, we are the most made up of frequency and vibration. All breathing creatures are. And, so when we recognize that, if you think about like grief, I'm an expert in grief. And so, grief, if you think about how it changes our vibrational energy while we're in it. People say to me, why won't my loved one come to me? Why can't I see them? But they went to my brother on the other side of town in their dream, but they didn't come in mine. And I say, because you're in the lowest of vibration. Grief, hate, and anger are the three lowest vibrational energies. So hate meaning rage, anger meaning rage, or anger for that matter. And so they can't get through to that because they are vibrational energy. They are frequency. So our frequency drops so low that they can't get through. So they go to your friend to do it, to give you the message. It's not because they don't love you, it's because they won't give up.
Okay, so you said grief, anger, and then hate, three lowest vibrations. It's so interesting because these are vibration that, at least for me personally, if they do come up, or when they did come up in the past, especially as a kid, I would hide them. I wouldn't express them. Because I was ashamed of those emotions, because I was like, oh, I'm not allowed to be angry. I'm not allowed to hate. Like, I can't hate that person. Like, and so I bottled a lot of those emotions up. Like, I just didn't allow myself to express it. So when I was older, and even like by older, I mean the past couple of years. Like, it's not even like, we'll be real. All these emotions are like, no, you have to deal with this. Yeah, I think you talked about this earlier, right? About how like you can't
run from it.
Can't continue. No, you can't run from the things that you try to hide or something.
Oh, what you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you.
There you go. That's what it was. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
yeah, so I try to run from those emotions, and now a lot of them are literally, you could call it because of the astrology, whatever, because of the time. It doesn't really matter at this point. Now they're like, no, you need to sit with these emotions. You got to express them. You have to really, I say process them, but I think really it's like the neglected child. Not, I don't want to say neglected child in the corner, but
Yeah.
it's like these emotions are like, you have not you came here to be human. You came here to experience. You need to experience this.
Right.
We don't, and that's one of the things. Like, I think some people, they do have multiple lifetimes here on Earth. There are some people who just come to Earth once and they're like, this is the one time deal. I'm not doing this. And there's other people, like a lot of monks do this. They'll come here and they're like, no, I want to like actually, keep coming back, keep on evolving, keep on expanding. Because this is probably, I think some people have said this, but they say that this is like one of the, I think it's like the place within this construct where you can grow the most in the shortest amount of time. I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And every emotion we feel needs to be felt.
Yeah.
We're feeling it because it needs to be felt. And when we get the feels because something happens and we avoid it, it's going to lay on us heavily. So even with grief, which is a very painfully dark vibration, it's so painful. But as we're moving through it, the vibration changes. So all of those things are, all those energies, none of them are truly negative. They teach us. I actually think pain teaches me more than joy. When I'm in pain, I want out. And so I'm going to do everything I can to learn to get myself moved through it. But grief is powerful. And people say to me, how do I can't go through it? I can't step into it. Because you have to step into it, right? Just step into it. You don't have to do anything else because you don't have to go through it. It goes through you. And when people recognize that, they stop trying to force the solution of grief. They just let it be what it is and they allow it to go through them. And that's how it heals. But we have to be willing to step into it for it to go through us. Otherwise, we're running from it. And it's chasing. I always tell people grief is in the corner doing push-ups, waiting for us to be vulnerable. right?
That's
Like
so
you,
scary.
I know, but you're in the grocery store, you're feeling good, you're shopping, you're looking at a can of beans, and boom, you start crying. There it is,
Oh man,
you know?
yeah.
But the beauty
Mhm.
about that is that that is going, it's coming to us to go through us. And
Mhm.
it starts that healing process. Every time it happens, there's a healing process going on.
Let's say I had a cousin, so I'm gonna put it just for privacy reasons. But I had a cousin who their twin just passed away. And the twin who was still alive, she, when I went to the funeral, she didn't cry at all. Like she was really holding it together. Yeah, so but for me it was surprising because I'm like that's a twin connection. Like people don't understand how strong a twin connection is. It's really powerful. And so I kind of knew the context of it. And so when I saw her, I was just surprised that she wasn't, she wasn't grieving. I know there's a time and place for it, but I think it was the first time that I had saw somebody really push away the grief, like they didn't want to experience it. And I understood why too. There's a lot of context behind it. Do you know why people do that? I mean, I know it's not, obviously the feeling isn't pleasant.
Well, it's one of the stages of grief is denial and
Mm.
bargaining and anger. These are all stages of grief. And for most, they're in their body and soul is in such shock at what's
Mm.
happened. They also there's anticipatory grief. So when you have someone who's drug addicted
Mm.
and overdoses or has an accident because they've been drinking and driving forever,
Mm.
or someone kills them but they keep putting themselves in bad situations to have that happen. Any of those scenarios, you already have anticipatory grief. Does that mean you're not going to grieve when they're there? No, but you might step into anger because you've warned them and warned them and warned them, and so you're shut down to that the pain of the loss. You're more
Mm.
focused on why did this happen, how could this happen, etc. So there's a different reasons why people don't grieve, but we don't measure grief or put a name on grief that way, no more than we measure love. We don't measure grief
Mm.
because we know that that will come when they're ready and their souls can handle the
Yeah.
impact of it. And that
Yeah.
might be 10 years later.
Right.
They might tell themselves, I know they're my twin, but I knew they were going to I knew this was going to happen. I
Mm.
knew it.
Mm.
I knew it. I was prepared, or whatever that is.
Mhm.
And so they've already, pushed it away as much as they can because it's
Mhm.
scary.
Yeah.
So that's why. And what I've learned is not to judge grief at all. And
Mm.
I tell people who are in grief, don't judge your grief. Let it be
Mm.
whatever it is. If it's anger, it's anger. If it's shut down, it's shut down. Whatever it is, it will come to you when you are ready to handle it. It will not
Mhm.
avoid you. You can try to avoid it, but it will not avoid you.
Mhm.